have a call to order. Huzzah. Roll call. Starting with someone.
Jordan Sellergren, present.
Ryan Russell, present.
Christina Willou Reynolds, present.
Margaret Beck, present.
Andrew Lewis, present.
Kevin Burford, present.
Frank Wagner.
Nicole Villanueva, present.
Awesome. Do we have public discussion for anything not on the agenda? Cool. Okay. Certificate of appropriateness for 1025 Woodlawn Avenue.
Okay, this house is located here in the Woodlawn Historic District. It's a contributing property. Frank knows this well. It was his family's home. This is the front elevation. I talked in the description about it. Basically, you have a main hipped roof that has gable projections in 3 directions and then a 2-story extension basically off the back. And the architecture is called stick style, and it's partly because of all of the ornamentation. You have a band board across the top of the second floor windows and across the top of the first floor windows. There's a narrow lap siding and corner boards, and then you have this shingle that is basically forming the frieze board all the way around the top of the house. The gables have this elaborate barge board, and this is some of the stick style detail, and each of the projecting gables has this half moon style window. Otherwise, it has, large double hung windows, elaborate front porch that wraps around the west side. They call this a Chinese lattice frieze, this type of where it's horizontal and vertical in a pattern like that. Let's see. This is the aerial view, and you can see this is the block of the hipped roof with the projection out the front, each side, and then this 2-story portion. There's also this 1-story portion on the back. It is visible on the oldest Sanborn map we have of the area, so we don't know really when it's constructed, but it's in a slightly different style, and it's not a finished structure on the inside. Some remodeling has put a bathroom in a portion of it over time, but it's an interesting construction. This is what we see on the back. So it has a clipped gable, it has board and batten siding, it has this diagonal, maybe it's some kind of a beadboard-like siding. The windows pattern is completely different. It's just a completely different style, but it was in place by at least 1920, if not before. You can kind of see here that between the band board that's at the top of the first floor windows and the sill of the second floor windows, at least on this side and the west side, I don't have a good photo of the east side. There is a section that has kind of a half cove shingle. It's not the same fish scale as above. It's a slightly different pattern, I think. This is the interior of that structure. It's just showing right now it's not in good condition, so there are some holes in the roof. But, we have basically an unfinished structure on the inside. It looks a lot more like a garage. Karen, the owner, was talking about it as like a canning shed, like where they could keep canned goods and stuff like that. This is just an image of the floor because it is actually a step down from the rest of the house as well, but this is plywood, so it's very unfinished. And so the proposal is to remove this structure in its entirety and build a new 1-story structure that'll have like laundry, bath, and mudroom area. Here we have, again, we're looking at kind of that rear of the house. So this is the west side of that structure that will be removed. And we did have, over here, there's an open porch on the east side. And then there's one, again, that might have been here, but it's been enclosed. It might have just always been an enclosed addition. I don't know. But what's interesting is on this west side of the house, there's a different stick style ornamentation in basically this frieze board and on the details on this projecting bay. And it's also interesting because that only shows up in this first floor section, not up above. In the staff report, I talked a little bit about the positioning and the plan view of the house, and some of that has been resolved, but I'll kind of go through it really quickly. So here is the assessor's sketch of the house. Here's that one-story section, and you can see, and we also could see on the photo that the east side of that structure aligned with the east side of the house. And so while we're talking on site about maximizing the amount of space that they could have inside there, normally if we were to remove this, we would have an addition that's set in on both sides. But in order to maximize that space, the recommendation is to go ahead and have this line as it has for over 100 years already on this side, and have the west side set in, which it also did. It won't set in quite as much as it does currently. It'll be about 1 foot bigger. We didn't have that really in a plan, and so this is a sketch. So we have here the existing portion of the house, and we have, this is the area of the addition, and so it shows that it'll be aligned on the east side again, and it'll set in the west side. And so the recommendation from staff would just be that it's set in enough that the roof will terminate at the corner board and not project beyond. If that's a foot, it would depend on what the eave overhang is, and they would match the others. Here's the plan view without the house attached. There's a plan to have double doors here on the east side. There would be 2 windows on the west side, a pair of windows on the south, which is the back of the house, and then it'll be open to the rest of the house where the current portion of the building is as well. So this is the rear elevation. And so it shows that they will, match the corner boards, the water table, the lap siding. I don't remember if the proposal said whether or not they would use wood or a smooth cement board or hardy. We would think that would be appropriate for either of those as long as they're smooth. The windows would match the historic windows on the house, and we would just have a window product submitted for that. And so then here is a band board that's more, it would be separating this frieze, which is at the top of the wall. So if you imagine it wrapping around the side, it's right under the eave of the house. This frieze, then there would be a band board, and then fish scales. Now, the proposal had a window here in this area, and the staff recommendation would actually be to match the gables on the house, and I'll talk a little bit about where this window idea came from. But they're showing a triangular window in the rear-facing gable. Here we can see the west-facing gable. Like the front, it's, it has some decoration here that they could copy if they wanted to, but I don't think that would be required. We're talking about a new modern addition on the back of the house, so it could be simplified, or they could copy it. But then this gable, like the front gable, has a half-moon window. And I think if the owner had some desire for a decorative window in the gable, the recommendation would be to match the others with a half-moon window if they wanted to. It would also be appropriate just to have maybe a small square attic-style window or something like that in that location if they would rather. This is the window that they were considering matching. Now, this roof is called a gable-on-hip roof. And a hip roof is, if you imagine, a pyramid. So we have a slope in all 4 directions. You can extend that so it's longer, and so you have a central ridge where you still have slopes in all 4 directions. Well, if you want to get light into that attic, you just extend the ridge further to make a flat area of wall and put a window in it. And so that is what this particularly is. That triangular window is from a gable-on-hip roof, and it specifically sits there between the roof line and the roof below. And so that's part of the reason why we don't have a roof below. We have the shingle siding. It would create a new condition, and so that's why we would recommend matching one of the other gables instead. So this is the east elevation. They're showing some kind of, the house has a stone foundation, and they've talked about, something similar to that. We just would need to know from them, exactly what they want to do. I would think since this is an addition, they could do anything from a concrete block where they put some kind of a stone facing on it. They could probably just do a concrete block. It is a modern addition, and so we do like to match foundations in sometimes, but it's hard to match a stone foundation. So sometimes if somebody really wants to go the extra mile, they might use like a rock-faced block, which was popular like in the 20s and stuff like that. It has that kind of textural feel. But they also tend to ship that in from Indiana. So I think that the foundation material itself is a little bit open as long as it's not just like a smooth concrete or something like that. But this is showing that, the roof comes down and then there's a frieze board at the top of the wall. This east side won't have any windows. It'll just be lap siding, but it does show a pair of doors. The rest of the house has a band board at a certain height at the top of the doors and windows, and all the doors and windows come to that height, and we would recommend that these doors do that too. So I don't know if that means that we have a band board below the frieze and the door comes up to that, or if the door just comes directly to the frieze. We'd probably look at that bay to get that detail specifically, similar to here, where we have the window heads up below that frieze. So we would just suggest that that door is the same height as the others on the exterior of the house. And whether or not it is a pair of doors or a single door, I don't think would really matter. The guidelines, so it recommends that all the doors and windows are trimmed the same, preserving similar pitches, and this is the one that we usually use for retaining the corners of the building, so we have that form of the building is still evident. Matching the window types and sizes, and matching a window pattern. And I think, what they've shown here, we have a pair on the south side that I think the house has pairs of windows on it, individual ones on the west side. I think all of that appears similar to the house. And this is the section on additions. And we've gone through pretty much all of those. And then the one about demolition, because we are demolishing a part of a historic structure. We're doing that here not only because that addition or whatever it is does not match the rest of the house. It's in poor condition. The new owner has a desire for, a construction that she can have actual living space in and, make it a permanent part of the house and have it match the rest of the house. So the recommended motion for this is that it is approved. I didn't put the address in there. I'm sorry. It's 1025 Woodlawn. The new gable peak matches the other gables on the house instead of the gable on hip roof. The west roof overhang terminates at or before the corner of the historic portion of the house. And that we look at what the foundation will be, the window and door product. They might have salvage doors. In that case, we just need to confirm that they would be the right height, which we'd take their word for it, and have photos of it. And then that last one is about the height of the door.
So now is comment by the owners,
They want.
if you would like to.
If you'd like to speak, you can. You'd sign in on the paper.
Aye. Hi, I'm Karen Lee. I purchased 1025 Woodlawn Avenue in May of '23. It's my dream house, except for that back portion, which is an abomination, and I believe it was an abomination the day it was built. And my understanding is it was a canning shed. It's not where they stored canning, it's where they did canning. There was a big stove, kind of a summer kitchen type thing back there. Jessica, could you put your recommendations back up? Because I have issue with, I guess, 3 out of 4 of them. There's one gable peak on the east side that is much simpler. It does not have the protrusion or the, stick-style ornamentation. And I think the other 3 gable peaks that exist on the house are just much too heavy for the proportions of this proposed addition. I would very much prefer to have that triangular window. It would add a lightness, not only to the appearance, but more light to the interior of that space. I'd hopefully get some passive solar energy to heat that space. And as far as products, I'll let any one of you go shopping for them. I would just love to see it. I'll be happy to submit and comply with whatever those regulations are. But it was, as far as the new door opening revised to match existing doors, the only existing door on that side is on that small back kitchen porch, and it's higher than the proposed roof line of the addition. So I don't know how it would match.
So then we would just have it go up to that freeze board.
Okay. I know that my salvage doors are not that tall, but we had also talked about having Simpson door product manufacturing, something like that, do doors that would match that.
Yeah, we could look at something like that, or potentially if you could have the frame made so that maybe there was a transom above your salvage doors.
Possibly.
We could look at something like that.
Okay. Ta-da.
Awesome. So next would be moving for.
Well, if anyone has any questions for her or anything else.
Okay. Yeah.
Item number 2, about the west overhang terminates at or before the corner of the historic house. Oh, yeah, all right, I forgot a big chunk here. I really don't want that east side to just be one long continuation. It's 28 feet as it is right now, and I'm proposing to add 2 feet. It's got a real Motel 6 vibe to it that I would really like to get away from. I would like to have that inset, even if it was 6 inches, the wall was 6 inches.
So you're talking about like right here?
Right.
Oh.
Right.
If you want to inset it, that's fine.
Yeah, but in order to have the space for that floor plan that I gave you, a lot of time and effort has gone into that floor plan because they're not only features that I want to have on the outside, but they're features I want to have on the inside. For instance, a original sink top. It's an old granite sink top that I'd like to incorporate into that bathroom. It's very wide. And I'd like to have the light that's coming through. That's a very dark corner of the house because there are no windows on the south. I'd like to have the light that's coming in through there come all the way into the east side. It would be on that other floor plan. You'd be able to see that. Yeah, where the window is, it would just, the light would go all the way to the hall. And in order to achieve that, there's going to be overhang. 11 inches is what it would be on the west side, where there is currently no overhang. But that 11 inches is not visible from the street view. It's behind, you know, the two-story that incorporates the bay on the west side. And it would minimize the overhang that already exists on the east side. That's currently 17 inches. It would be 11 inches. That would give me the width to have enough space for washer, dryer, the layout of the bathroom as I would like to see it, and a hallway that meets construction standards.
May I ask a question? So on the west side, no, the east side where it's continuous wall length, that currently already has an overhang that extends beyond.
Yes, of 17
So
inches.
is it okay that it does that? That is.
It's also obscured by the porch roof right here.
So that is what you're talking about, that just maintaining that overhang.
Well, minimizing it, it would be 11 inches
Okay.
instead of 17.
Okay, so this isn't that wouldn't be a big difference. You wouldn't be adding to the overhang.
What she's proposing is to actually set the addition in on this side so that if this extends, 17 inches, it'll only extend 11.
Oh.
And so this corner will be exposed to the house and the wall will meet back here or something.
So it would be closer to our guidelines.
And then on this
That
side,
side would be. The other side would have the same 11-inch overhang in order to have the addition centered.
So you're scooting it over.
Yeah. I
okay.
would like to see it centered on the back of the house. The symmetry really appeals to me. But there'd be 11 inches of overhang on this side.
Do our guidelines only specify wall, or is it also overhang?
the
setting,
guidelines
sorry.
just talk about preserving the original walls and vertical corners that define the massing of a historic building. The reason that we usually terminate the roof is to avoid some of the things that we have seen happen. For instance, if they have a roof that comes down and suddenly we just have this awkward projecting triangle of siding, or have a hip roof that then has to wrap around the corner three-dimensionally or something like that, to typically avoid those kinds of situations. And here on this house, partially because it's been covered for so long, it just sticks out.
Right, but I mean to say, this side, the east side could be set in because that's fine.
Yeah.
The other side, what we're saying though is that to match our guidelines, it's walls and corners. It's not necessarily the roof. So if she does overhang a little bit, that's not technically against anything that we're saying. It's centering it, go for it. There are concerns possibly from,
It is not as much of an issue per se because of the fact that all of this portion of the house will block that from view.
Right.
If you had a two-story house without any bump outs or anything, then you suddenly have this little, it would be really obvious.
Sure.
So on this house, it's not as much of an issue because of the fact that it's all going to be tucked behind all of this.
right. And again, not as much of an issue because it doesn't actually violate the guidelines.
No.
Right.
Now, the one thing that we would want to be sure is that we do have a guideline that talks about maintaining the horizontal lines. So we want the east and west gutters to be at the same height as this bump out, because that's the horizontal line that we would be matching. So we wouldn't want them to extend lower than that or have it higher. We would just want to match that height.
Gotcha. But where distance-wise, which is even what we're talking about, is fine.
It could be.
My problem with that is that the entire addition would have to get taller. I love, the only thing I love about this, old addition was the proportions of it in scale to the rest of the house. If I make it taller, then I'm going further up into that fish scale band that's on the south side.
But Karen, the commission can make an exception to the guidelines, but we do have a guideline where, the height of this frieze would be matched, the eave.
I know,
All the
and-
gutter,
and
I mean,
I-
that's a prominent part of the
Yeah.
guidelines.
That's going to be problematic. I did notice that I walked down the alley on my side of Woodlawn. Their additions, the windows, and I know the additions have been done in, relatively recent years. Their horizontal lines are lower than the original lines. The house directly to the east of me, their last addition, everything is significantly lower, with the exception of the water table and the drip cap. And that I would like to have at the same height. But everything above that, I don't want that addition to be that tall.
Do we have any drawings that compare what you're hoping to do with what, that would demonstrate what you're
I have
hoping-
photographs on my phone.
Well, but if drawings of the complete edition, the
I
completed
do.
drawings of the edition in context of the rest of the house, so that we could see how
Oh, that I don't have.
the horizontal
Yeah.
lines would work out.
That I don't have, but I do have, like I said, photographs on my phone that would show that, if I make this taller, then I've completely dissected that band of fish scales above the addition, which I really don't want to do.
If this is a situation where we need drawings so that you can evaluate something, you can defer it to another meeting until they produce drawings
I mean, I'm
that
not
show
really,
that. It depends on what you want.
Yeah,
Go to the photograph of the south side, so we can kind of see
Can I just give that to you to,
there. Oh,
This, or do you want the other one?
there we are.
I would agree going up higher is going to go into that fish scale. And the difference in the roof lines, the gutters, what would they be? Like, are we talking
I
a
want
couple inches?
I want to duplicate as many details from the original house as I can. I want the same gable pitch. I want the same ornamentation. The siding fine, as Jessica was saying, a hardy board or a smooth wood. That's great.
Can you go to the wet? So I'm kind of curious. Yep, there it is. So the gutter here and the gutter that's on the little bump out there, they're about the same. You can see it's right below the fish scales in that band. If you go to the east side, that's what you're trying. And this,
hard to see.
it would probably be about some. I know that porch roof that's in place there now is not original, and the guy that probably built it built it too high. It probably could have been to line up with that.
And I don't have any photos of this side of the house.
Not that that would.
I do, but as I said, I don't know how to show them to you without.
Well, let's walk down. Come on, everybody.
You want to see my phone? I could show it. I can show you pictures of that.
It's hard to make
But
it,
you're-
for me, it's hard to make a judgment call without drawings.
But you're trying to keep it from that west view of the south side.
Yeah,
That's the height you
I
want.
just don't want it taller.
Right.
Yeah.
I can see that you wouldn't want that taller.
And to duplicate, as many of the details as are on that side, everything above the water table will be lower than that.
So, Jessica, do you believe that what Karen is describing will require an exception? And would we have to vote on that?
There's so many things, and I didn't write them down.
mean, personally, I mean, I'm receptive to what you're describing. It's just simply a matter of making sure that if the council, if the commission does need to approve this, I think we would need a different maybe illustration of it, just simply to make sure that we go through the proper channels to provide the,
And to make sure I'm understanding what you want, it would be the south side of the original house with the addition on it.
To see what the difference would be between, like, what is actually the deviation from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like, because right now it sounds like the
It's not,
exception.
it's not only that, it's that, some of these rooms, interior rooms are going to end up being like 5 by 8 feet. And to have a 10-foot ceiling, the proportions would just be ridiculous. It'd be like you were standing in a shoebox on end.
I'd really like to see what both the west side, complete with the original home and the addition, sorry, I just put something in my mouth, and the east side look like, so we can see what the horizontal lines look like, I mean,
If, yeah, but are we looking for a reason to have an exception, right? Like,
Yeah.
other than like, I want this, right? Like, would it be something like there are historic details of this house that would be interfered with if we went higher, so an exception would be, does that make sense?
yeah. There's like, we need a little bit, we like need more information in the argument to make the exception.
It's the top guideline here that is the one in question as far as the horizontal lines. And I think that it is, based on the things that Karen has described here at the meeting, we have a few things that are not necessarily shown accurately in the drawings. I mean, what happens with the door and the door height? What happens with the eave condition and stuff? And typically, we do ask for a drawing that shows a portion of the existing house and how the addition ties in as an elevation drawing. And often that is done just to show that, we're matching the window patterning. They match the same height and size and scale, and then we match the trim lines and stuff like that. And so that's just one way. Either we write an approval that says these things will be matched, or if we really want to evaluate whether or not it's okay to make an exception to the guidelines because they're not going to match, that's when you might want to have another drawing.
So a question is that the simple answer is to say, can we see a normal and customary drawing that we see for most projects that come before us?
Yeah, any time that we need to see more information, it is common to defer a project until that's given. We've had projects where we've had, complicated roofs, and, us all sitting here and gesturing about the roof doesn't make it so that we can really evaluate it or have something written down. And so then we deferred until we got a roof drawing.
So a question, is there a concern with being able to provide a normal
I just
drawing
thought
for-
this was such a simple addition.
Well, it's a very prominent historic home in a very prominent historic neighborhood, so we really have to be careful about, going about.
But my understanding was that on the back side of the house, when nothing is visible from the street view, that those kinds of exceptions were acceptable.
I do think, like, as I read that, it says matching key horizontal lines. This is the back of the house. I don't see this as a key horizontal line. I think the argument is there about the scale, that if you go up too high up, it's going to go into that. I think that's going to look worse.
I do
I
too.
just don't think anybody is there's bump outs on that house. There's 2 bump outs before you even get to that back section. I just don't think you're going to see it. I don't think it's going to be that much lower than the other sight lines. I would have no problem approving this to have that roof a little bit lower. I don't think it's a key horizontal line. This is obviously a homeowner that is very particular about this house. This is well thought out. I personally, I know, like, we're not trying to set a precedent, but this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to look at something like this. It makes sense not to have it go higher. I wouldn't want an addition that small that have a 10-foot ceiling in it. I think that wouldn't work. as I look down the side of that house, I think it was the west side, you can see that there's bump out, and then you get to the addition. You're not going to see that roof line from the front of the house. You're going to have to go around and look, and then maybe after 15 minutes of somebody saying, do you see a difference here? Would I say, oh, okay, that roof is a little lower. So personally, I don't have any issues as a member on this commission to approve lowering, that sight line is lower.
Yeah, and I agree that I don't either. It was just simply a question about procedure, more or less. Like, if it rises to the level where it requires an exception, I don't even know that people would object to the exception necessarily. I mean, we'd vote, but it's just merely an issue of like, what do we need to be fair to everyone? What do we routinely ask for?
We do routinely ask for an addition to show a portion of the house because there are no dimensions on this drawing. So I don't know where that ridge line hits.
I can't vote based on the drawings provided. I just don't have enough information. I can't make a logical decision based on what I've seen. It could come out.
Are you requiring an architectural rendition?
Or just something that it provides a little bit further context. I just truly don't feel right making a decision when there's so many guidelines here and there's these specific things that are in question without having that more complete drawing, which I don't think is a lot to ask.
Would a photograph?
No, because I want to see what the plan is.
Okay.
But
the
that's
plan
something
is identical to what's already there.
I think we could, if we could defer to the next meeting and you could bring in another drawing. I mean, would it help your construction? Do you intend to begin before?
No.
I mean, that's what I would ask is just drawings that show how you expect it to look, how you expect the complete project to look with the information that Jessica's provided, and just get us there a little bit further. I think a lot of us would feel a lot more comfortable, and just with regard to like the protection of historic properties moving forward, it puts us in a better position as a commission to just, we have more to work with, more information. Right now, we just don't have a lot of information.
I guess which of these, so are we looking for exceptions to a bunch of the guidelines or just that one guideline, right? The rest of it seemed to match.
Pretty sure the door going a bit higher.
The door is a non-issue. Whatever you want, I can do with the door.
Right, and I think the other thing, this is the main thing we need an exception to, right?
The horizontal lines.
I tend to agree with you guys in that I think it's right. They're not key. It's in the back of the house. It's very hidden from everything. I do want those as reasons for an exception. I don't want to just say, sure, here you go. But I think that makes sense to me. But, yeah.
So I think at this point, you guys probably need to poll yourselves to determine whether or not you think you generally have enough information to vote and then make a motion and vote, or if you think you need more information and want to defer it, and then you make a motion to defer it and vote.
Sellergan moves to defer to a point where we have more thorough drawings.
Brown, second.
So you can discuss that motion?
Boy, I feel like in the case of significant disagreement, the prudent course of action is to defer it rather than try to push anything through tonight.
I mean, we've talked before about the fact that we don't have to have consensus, right?
Right.
And that's okay. I feel like if we're looking at a motion that is for a project that doesn't have drawings, and most of our discussion is, well, as long as it complies with, and as long as it agrees with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, right, all these things, then it's because we don't actually know that that's the case or not. On the one hand, does that put an excessive burden on an applicant that they need an architectural drawing when they weren't planning on doing one because they have the know-how to do this themselves, and so it's a different approach, and that may very well be the case, right? And they might be able to comply with all but one exception based on that. But it doesn't seem unreasonable to me for us to ask for a more complete drawing like we see with most projects, even if it's a hand-drawn, right, on graph paper, and that's fine, like we normally see. But that shows here's the existing house and here's how it'll change and so on. So that's my own take on it.
I guess my take would be that whatever drawing we get as a result of this, it's going to show us that those lines don't match. right?
Yeah,
No matter what, like that's not gonna, like we're not gonna get those and suddenly be like, oh, now I see they don't match. Like we already know that that's gonna be true, right?
Yeah, but I don't know what I'm voting for, so I'm not going to vote for it.
I feel like the only thing I'm voting for is the height of the roof line coming down. That's what I'm voting on. Everything else was pretty spelled out, what materials they're going to use. It's just, the addition is kind of wonky to the one side. It's going to get centered. And it's going to look just like that with the materials listed. It's just the roof is going to be lower.
And your vote is based on the fact that because it's the back of the house,
It's the
you
back of the
accept
house.
wherever those lines fall.
Yes.
It's the back of the house.
I mean, I don't say wherever. I mean, it
Well,
was
that may be
way down,
exaggeration,
but I
but
think
yeah.
within, I have a feeling this is probably going to be within inches to possibly a foot. I don't, I mean, that's what it looks like right there. I just think that, I don't know, as a commission, I just feel like we need to, this is somebody I think cares very much about this home, wants to preserve it. And that's why I think we need to work with people to make that happen, especially with, just I think it's thought out. I understand, like I can, sure, if I saw a drawing, would I say, oh, like you said, yeah, okay, I see it. But I can kind of see it now.
I can't. I feel maybe we've been spoiled, but I feel like this is the drawings and no offense at all, but I just feel like I have kind of a drawing on a napkin quality at this point where I'm just not. To me, this is like a major. You're demoing part of a historic
Yeah,
structure.
I do take issue to that. This is to scale, and a great deal of thought went into this. This is not a drawing on a
Well,
map.
but there's no context, and that is a big deal to me. I just really, if this is the exception, that's what I want to see.
Well, but as was pointed out, that is what your additional drawing will show, is that these lines are not going to be aligned. I mean, I can do the drawings if you'd like, but that is what they will show.
But even having the dimensions would help us, I think. Because I could see how tall it was. Like, I don't know how tall that structure even is right now, just from the pictures, right? So, like, there's no dimensions on this
I can tell
stuff.
you, I can get my own, and I can tell you how tall it is because it is to scale.
Wait, if I could add one more thing to this. Part of what I think about when I think about this is we have had cases like this in the past where we deal with a well-intentioned homeowner and or with all of the care for the house and the project and the historic neighborhood and so on. And we are then cautious about issuing, about making a motion and then approving a motion that allows a broad, right? Like say, okay, it'll look more or less like this. And as long as these couple of criteria are met, then we're okay with it, right? And what does that mean for other developers who might say, great, if you tell me the line can be like that, that's fine. And then I'm going to do these other odd, which I'm exaggerating, right, for effect. But that's my concern when I talk about a drawing is if we proceed with a project where we don't have a good idea of what it will look like in conjunction with the rest of the structure, then does that open up for approval of some other project where we also can't quite see what it is? And then the outcome is not as nice as what yours will be. It's what someone else pushes for. And so please understand that my thinking about looking for it in the broader context of the house is more future oriented even than necessarily just this project.
We did say it could even be a sketch.
Yeah.
And so to me, a sketch though,
Showing where the house.
but what I'm
falls,
saying
where
is
the-
with a sketch, that's not going to be telling us all of the dimensions and all that kind of stuff either though. You know what I mean?
But right now,
I think
this is just the addition. And there's a whole house behind it. So let's see that house.
The house, yeah.
Let's see the house. And it sounds like it's not going to interrupt progress. So that's why I moved to defer. Let's see a little bit more. It'll be helpful to you as well. You know, I mean, it's just all in the name of preparedness for both the commission and you. What's the problem? Sorry to be flippant.
Well,
I'm not trying to be flippant
No,
because I know you care
if you
deeply.
look at that photograph of the back of the house,
I can't. It doesn't translate for me. I don't know what why I can't. It can't. But I need to. I just. That's where I'm at. I don't know. I'm just being honest.
Often I would have asked for a drawing that showed the rest of the house. Typically, that is something that we do ask for. I was sick for a week, so we had limited time.
I was just wondering, Jessica, I mean, it sounds like there is some, I mean, you had a motion for us to consider, and then there was some, rethinking of what was proposed, and it's this, for me, I get hung up on the procedural stuff, but it seems like it's, unfortunately, because what you submitted supported, I think, the motion that was presented to us. It was merely in the change of the motion where it was like, okay, but now things are changing substantially enough that we have to restate this motion. And how will we restate it? Like, how specific can we be? And we're doing this in the meeting as opposed to kind of a well thought out, like, restating of what the new motion would be. I mean, not that we can't think on our feet, but.
The motion had four kind of criteria, and it looks like just the one with the roof height was the only one that is the issue, correct?
Yeah, I guess
So
that
to
is
me,
the
we were
sticking
about to
point,
make a
right.
motion with four of those. Three of those are not even an issue.
Well, they all changed.
They changed,
Right.
yes,
But
because it didn't seem to be a,
Yes, because she had, the property owner had issues with three of the
yes.
points on the motion.
But it sounds like the doors are going to go, that was not going to be an issue.
The latter two are very easily solved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I still would have issue with putting that heavy dormer on this small addition. Would much prefer to have that triangular window, of which there are already two others.
I would also love to see what those look like.
There were photographs of them.
Of the ones,
Yeah, the other
of these ones? Oh, of the,
No, the,
this photo shows two things.
Okay.
The staff recommendation would be that the gable end of the addition, it has a freeze board with the fish scale shingles, and then her window is in a normal position for a gable, right here. Whether or not she was to have any of this ornamentation, that would not be required, because if we're looking at an addition on the back, it could be a simplification. So she would still have, obviously, a freeze board and stuff here, but she wouldn't have to have the stick work because it's an addition. It's modern. It's not, if a storm took this off, then yes, we would probably want to put it back. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about a modern addition. So the staff recommendation would be to basically do something like this without the detail of the carved wood. So she'd have a window in this location, she'd have the shingle siding, period. It's going to have a roof overhang because you're going to have the same distance of overhang on the gable end that you have on the eave end. You're not going to have a flat. You're going to push this back so that it's flush with the wall. There's going to be an eave overhang on the end. So then it's a matter of what she has preferred instead is there's siding here. And so then you have like a band board at this location or somewhere, maybe a little higher, and then a window similar to this on the wall under here.
but is there another example of that on the house? The same-
Only on the gable, on the hip.
Only right there.
Yeah.
Well-
And that's basically, yeah, and there's an equal one on the back. So
Okay.
there's
But it's
two.
a different, it's not the same example because that is the overhanging.
That's it's basically a roof dormer,
Yeah.
but it's a specific architectural thing because
You're
it's,
asking for what we see here on the front facade with the half circle window.
yeah. Now the back is a little different because they've built that gable out to a flat surface, which is not what we would recommend matching unless for some reason she wanted to do that. So, all of this build out in this soffit right here, it would just, the soffit would be in the gable. It wouldn't be down here. So it would be similar to this without this triangle. The west one is similar to the front one,
And that picture shows the triangular window on the.
Yeah, and this is the
faces
other
south.
one, the other triangular one.
I was curious, what does the stage left side of the commission think of any of this?
I'm torn.
I'm not bothered by the window so much, I guess.
The
but
window
I-
does seem to match something else on the house for an addition. That's not the biggest concern, I suppose, but I do see that those windows are there for a different reason, I guess, than having.
I just don't, I need more.
Do we want to vote on,
You do have a motion on the floor.
right, to defer until we have?
So if they want to revise it to something else, or you vote and move on with a new motion.
Want a revision or?
My only thought on revision is the point that you guys have made, which is there are changes that have happened in this room to this suggestion as opposed to in the application itself. It would be nice to see what those look like in the application itself, to see a complete project, I suppose.
Yes.
I can see that.
So Jessica, could you and the property owner work together between now and the next meeting and develop and work on new drawings and a more thorough example, so the commission actually has something more, that give us more information regarding the guidelines that we can vote on?
Well, as I've said, it's not going to meet the guidelines for
Well, but at
continuous.
least convince us. Because I know it's hard to be convinced because there's just not enough, it doesn't feel like there's enough information.
So looking at the picture, go back, that one, is the proposed idea for your window, for that triangle window like that, is it going to be flat on the roof like that or set back like
It will be, no, it will be under an eave.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's part of what we hear that too.
Right, so the roof edge wouldn't be like this.
Right, you showed that, but
Yeah.
I didn't hear how the window was going to be. I mean, you said it, but I wanted to hear.
And
her say
that
it.
honestly would be another thing that we would see in a drawing.
Yes,
We would
yeah.
see the roof overhang on those sides as well.
And I think the idea is not necessarily,
Because here it's shown flush, I'm sorry.
no, I mean, we know it's not going to match the guidelines, but by giving us all of the drawings, an updated drawing and all of the information, then we have like more of a visual representation that we can.
Could I have clarification on what the remaining issues are?
Seems-
Is the triangular window okay? I said the door was a non-issue because we can make the door be what we want the door to be. The 11-inch overhang, on both sides, is that something that's cleared by the commission? What else?
I think
I-
so far from
I think
this
so,
conversation,
yeah.
it seems like the window is an issue. Just
It's still-
seeing what it's
it's
going to look
still
like,
a
right? I
little
mean,
bit
if it's still set under an eave, I don't know. It feels like there's still shadow happening or
I
whatever.
know, yeah,
but-
I'm not sure that that'll actually provide as much light as you're hoping.
That's what.
And then I think the like overhang.
Well,
didn't-
it certainly does in the attic, so.
The overhang didn't seem to be the issue because it was the walls that we needed to be set in from things. It's how low those would go. So seeing in a picture how much the addition would deviate from that line, I suppose could be something that could help us decide things as well. But
I mean, I think Carl's mention of precedent is a good one. I mean, in this case, I think there's been some reasonable back and forth in the room. There was staff recommendation. You had some other proposals. And, I think individual people in the commission have expressed receptiveness to all of this. I think it's simply a matter of to treat everyone fairly when they ask for an exception.
I understand that.
What do we need
yeah.
to see as a routine thing? And so I think it may even be like, just simply laying it out will allow us to go through the procedure to grant an exception. It doesn't mean opposition necessarily. Obviously, we still vote. But I'm just saying we need to see certain things to just go through the process because other people will come asking for exceptions.
Okay.
And we have to be able to say, oh, well, we want, we always ask for this. And
Yeah.
So.
I understand that. But again, I want clarification on what the issues are that I need to document, to show you.
So I would say each of the points on the motion that was this recommendation.
Maybe if I could just interject.
Sure.
So I think that it would be very helpful to make sure the drawings are completely accurate. For instance, we are looking in this drawing at the east elevation. We know the wall of the house is right here. On this side, we know that this is going to extend, but it's not drawn that way.
Okay.
And so it should be drawn accurately.
Okay.
We should see, I don't know, 3 feet or so of the existing house so that we can see right here, like for instance, there's a porch roof right next to this. And so that would show. But then when we get to this side, we could also see where things hit. And for the south elevation, we would see the rest of the house. So we would know, where does this peak hit for sure. Having a few dimensions, we also know that the building permit will require some dimensions. You're going to have to provide some dimensions and some more detail. And so that information that you'd need for the building permit and seeing that back 3 feet or so of the existing house so that they can see exactly how things tie in or don't tie in.
Okay.
And then they can evaluate that. And if it all looks good, then they can approve it. But I would recommend, since you have a pair of doors that you want to use, draw
They're
them
not going to be big enough to go up to that.
Maybe with the transom window.
make this accurate to propose what you want. So if you want to try to use your salvage doors and there's a way to build a transom to go with them, show that. Show the doors as tall as they actually really are in relation to this.
This is to scale.
Okay. And I would think that this is along the lines with the horizontal lines that just don't match. But if there's a door adjacent to it that is at that height, show that. We need to be able to compare those things. If there are no doors that match this height, then that's probably not the doors that they would approve. But if you are looking at another portion of the house to match that, show that.
To match the style of the doors, is that what you're saying?
Or the height, or the size,
Okay.
or the style of the door, yes.
Okay. As I said, this whole addition is a foot at least lower than the rest of the house, so it's not going to match to height unless, the whole thing is raised a foot, which is something.
And that's just something that the commission needs to evaluate. I mean, this house has a front porch, a bay on the west, the bump out on the west, and a porch on the east. I don't know if those are all the same height. Maybe they're not. Maybe there's precedent in this house for things to be at a different height. But if they are the same height, then yes, they need to be able to evaluate that.
Okay.
If I could add probably two points for myself at least, is I think that when we consider an exception, right, which as you've said, the porch or the roof line will not be the same height, the doors will not be as tall as they might need to be and so on. I think for us to agree to an exception, it's actually all the more important for us to have the drawings to scale so that we can see what they are and understand that. And the other one, and this is a clarifying question for you, and I don't know that I necessarily have a thought or response after this, but is the idea that you or people that have the skills to do this, so you're not working with an architect and you're like, great, I'm going to do the drawing and then we're going to build the addition because we want to do that?
It's just that I do have the skills to build this. My contractor is here with me tonight.
Okay.
Great.
He reads me beautifully. If I say, this is what I want it to look like, he makes it happen.
Yeah, and I think it's a challenge for us to find that balance, right? Because so often a project on a historic home, someone has an architect that they're working with, and they do these drawings and they put it into a
I would rather put that money into the construction
absolutely
than
right, and they put it into a software
architect.
program where they
Yeah.
can show us 28 different angles that we want because it's all automatic and you don't have to draw by hand.
Yeah.
And so I think we're trying to find some balance between not considering that a requirement because it is not, right? That is not a requirement. And what do we need to be able to see what the exception looks like to say, oh yeah, that all looks about what it is without just saying it's an exception, so say yes. right? And it's
Well, I'm
balance.
I'm understanding better the need for the additional pictures. But again, they will be on graph paper, you know. But as I said, this is to scale. I've been out there and measured all of this. One square equals 6 inches, you know, so.
And it could even be, like you said, you have pictures on your phone, right? If it's a
Yeah.
picture on your phone that you hop on your computer and you draw some red lines that say, here's where the roof line will be, so we can have that view of it, even that might take less time than the graph paper even, but something like that.
If you do it on graph paper, I would recommend that, you know, just do it smaller
Okay,
so that you can fit more of the house in.
okay. I can do that. But again, I would like clarification on all the points. What is at issue here? That I can rethink or say, can't do that.
I think, Karen, the staff report lists the guidelines that are used to review this project.
But
And
it
then
seemed like some of them, were going to be okay. Like, is the 11-inch overhang on each side, is that okay?
I would assume that the commission needs the drawings to vote, and they would approve that at the same time. I don't think that the
My
commission
understanding is that
procedurally
we don't go through a process where we say, yep, you're good here, right? Generally, we approve the project as is, and so.
Okay.
So draw it with your 11-inch overhang, and then they would review it like they have here.
All right,
Yeah, and we'll come back to it next meeting.
okay.
And they are nice drawings. They're just not, they don't give me as much information as I want. And I didn't mean to insult at all by saying drawings on a napkin. I'm drawing on my notes right here, and, I absolutely have respect for the work. I just,
Yeah.
more information.
No, and I'm understanding better that you need a relationship between the back of the house and the addition. Okay, see you in a month.
We
We'll be here.
do still have to vote on this, I think, right?
Yeah, so you still have the motion.
Yep. And the motion is to defer. Okay. Do we want to vote on that?
Or do you need more discussion?
Do we need more discussion?
I'd prefer not.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think
Yeah, let's vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the report of certificates issued by the chair and staff.
Okay, this is the Weatherby House at 611 North Governor Street, and it is just basically a painting and repair project, so there's some siding and trim that has deteriorated that'll need to be replaced, a little bit of this crown and stuff, with an overall painting project that we're helping with our fund. This was just the installations of some vents in the rear bathroom back here on this house in the North Side Historic District at 317 Church Street. And then we have minutes.
Yep. Consideration of minutes. Do we have any edits? Is the word I'm going to use to the minutes? Where's the?
Oh, she's not here. No, none for me.
Okay. So
Wagner moves to approve the minutes for February 13th, 2025.
Being away with second.
cool. We can vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I never get to second. This is only recently. It's so fun.
Awesome. So now we have a commission discussion about the work plan update.
I just put this on here in case you wanted to talk about it. If anyone wanted to do anything.
Could we defer this to next meeting?
I will say with kind of like
So moved.
my responsibilities changing a little bit, I hope to take time very, very soon to start doing the map updates that when Kevin Boyd was chair of the commission, he had kind of gone through the north side and given us some ideas about properties that might change classification maybe. And so we will need to go through a whole process for that.
How does a property change classification? Is it because someone took away what left it out of consideration before and now it's back in? Or because someone did something and now, whoop, it's gone, it can't do it anymore?
Yeah, I think that there's a whole mixture of that. And so, for instance, Sherry DeGraw, who used to be on the commission, her house is, I believe, non-contributing in her district. And I believe 2 homeowners have worked on that house to remove, just rental special alterations and bring back historic character so that I would assume it's contributing now. Houses that were considered non-historic because they were built in 1948, they would be historic. And so then it would just be a matter of are they non-contributing because they don't fit the story of the district? Probably. So, yeah, I think there's a mixture. And there could be some that have been harmed that we didn't know about, work without a permit or other things that I think things going from contributing to non-contributing is less of that, but hopefully some that have improved.
So is this something that you have time now to work on?
I'm hoping
That's
it's
great.
looking like it might be possible. And so, yeah, I think then, I'd basically go through if it's something where I find a way that maybe the subcommittee could do a little legwork or something, then I might reach out maybe. But otherwise, I would do the work and looking at the properties and then come back with a report. And it would probably be like, here's the updated map, or now, new, here are the proposed changes, and we would look through them step by step individually. Yeah, so that's one good thing that hopefully we can get done.
One good thing.
Yeah. Anything else? Okey doke. Do we have any motion to adjourn?
Sellergren moves to adjourn.
Wagner seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
April 10th, next meeting.
All right.